So on May 5th, 2014, the Supreme Court said that it's totally fine for local governments to have prayers, even if they are overwhelmingly Christian. And one of the reasons that the Supreme Court said that was fine was because, quote, the town at no point excluded or denied an opportunity to a would-be prayer giver. A minister or layperson of any persuasion, including an atheist, could give an invocation. So since we couldn't challenge this in court anymore, we figured, okay, we'll take them at their word. And since nothing fails like prayer, FFRF inaugurated the Nothing Fails Like Prayer contest. And every year, we award this to someone who has gone to their local government body that is already praying and delivered a strong secular invocation. The award comes with this lovely plaque and a $500 honorarium. And this year's winner is Hemant Mehta, who you've probably heard of for other reasons than this particular prayer. Hemant is a writer, an editor, a YouTuber, a podcaster. He runs the hugely popular Friendly Atheist site. I visit it 19 or 100 times a day. He edited the 2017 book, Queer Disbelief, Why LGBTQ Equality is an Atheist Issue. He wrote the Young Atheist Survival Guide. And in a slightly devilish transaction, he sold his soul on eBay. Also wrote a very fun book about that. Earlier this year, he produced a limited series podcast on the history of the Pledge of Allegiance. You heard some of that today. I really highly recommend the podcast. He's a brilliant mind and a huge asset to the secular movement. He's unafraid of critiquing us to make us better, as much as he is unafraid of criticizing government officials who use their public offices to promote their personal religion. So Hemant, come on up and accept your award.
All right, let's see if we can get this thing working. Thank you. I'm just going to take it right back down. All right. Hi, everybody. All right. Hopefully you can hear me. I'm going to talk about, that was a very generous introduction from Andrew, which I really appreciate. Thank you for having me here. I'm going to talk about something that's not directly connected to that invocation, but something I feel very strong about nonetheless. And according to this, I have 13 or so minutes to give a hour-and-a-half speech to you. So we'll speed through this. Here's a question for all of you. Wouldn't it be nice if there were more atheists in public office? When you clap, you are taking all my time. I think you're right. Of course it would be great to have more atheists in office, but I think, and this is different from maybe a conservative religious crowd, I don't want them there because I want them advocating for atheism. That's not their job. I don't need them to do the stuff that FFRF does. I want them there for a different reason, because having more atheists in politics has some serious symbolic value. This is a picture of, I believe, the incoming House freshman class of 2018, all the people elected last November. And this, again, forget your politics for a second. This has serious symbolic value. It matters when my House representative is a black woman. It matters when you have a Muslim representing you in Congress, or someone with a physical disability, or someone who is LGBTQ. Those things have an impact in a way that those of us who are activists in any of these worlds just can't have. And there's a simple reason for that. We all know there's a stigma attached to being an atheist. How many of you have gotten to know somebody, you tell them at some point that you are an atheist, and the response you get back is, oh, but I thought you were a good person. We've all had some sort of variation on that conversation. Let me ask you a slightly different question. When you think about the most famous atheists you know, people in this room excluded, tell the person next to you, who is the most famous atheist you can think of? And there's a couple names that come to my mind. Maybe you're thinking of an author, a Richard Dawkins, same here, somebody like that. And again, if you are a famous atheist author, why are you a famous atheist author? It's because you wrote a book or two where your whole point is to have readers read it and then say, okay, I don't believe in this stuff anymore. Your goal in writing the book was to get people to stop being religious. Maybe you were thinking of a comedian. I heard someone say Bill Maher. And again, when does Bill Maher talk about religion? He brings it up in his act because he wants to mock it. And I'm glad he does. It's funny when he does it. But again, his point in doing that is to get you to laugh at religion. So this is why, more than ever, it would be such a big deal to have atheists in government, because I would argue that may be the highest profile job in America, where you would be well known for being an atheist, but your job is not advocating for atheism. And for the public, think about what that means. This may be their best chance to see an atheist in public life, see hopefully a respectable atheist in public life where their job is not to denigrate religion. And I think that would go so far in changing the public perception of what it means to be an atheist. Like, I love FFRF. They've been amazing. I am a member. But one of the things I love about them the most is their legal team. I love the lawyers who work for this place. But think about that. When they write letters, when they file lawsuits, there is, by definition, another side. They are doing battle. You saw it in some of the news clips earlier. The news media frames it as, the atheists versus this other side. And most people are on the other side. But if you are an atheist in politics, hopefully, if you're good at it, you're not doing battle against religion. You're trying to help everybody. That is a big deal. And yet, trying to get into politics has been this huge hurdle for atheists everywhere. And again, like I said, hour-and-a-half presentation cut down to, 5 minutes. I'm not going to get to everyone you can think of, but I'm going to try to give you a snapshot of how hard that hurdle has been to overcome, okay? This is a cover of a magazine that once appeared. See if you could see this. The cover says, The Last Taboo. And underneath, the little subheading there says, politicians keep saying we should inject more religion into our public life, but what we really need is a healthy dose of atheism. Cool. When was that magazine written? When was this article from? 1996. The author is Wendy Kaminer, who's a fantastic writer and activist, but she wrote this in 96, which I will say, all right, really? The last taboo? I mean, we hadn't had an African-American president. We hadn't had a woman at the top of the ticket. Is atheism the last taboo? No. But her point was, and she wrote this in the piece, I want to quote it directly, atheists generate about as much sympathy as pedophiles. Which is her point. Like, when you say you're religious and you're trying to run for office, people know what that means. It means you're a good person. It means we can trust you. And that is the thing they want when they're voting for somebody. And her point was, it's really hard to be an open atheist in politics. And she had a point. 1996, there were no open atheists in the U.S. Congress. So the question is she right? Is it still toxic to be an atheist in politics? And I'd say kind of. But that is changing, and it's changing really quickly and in ways you may not even be aware of. So I'll give you a couple snapshots here. Let me take you back to 2008. There's this guy named Barack Obama. He's running for office. But I'll take you to North Carolina. There was a U.S. Senate race, and it was between two people. They were both not incumbents running for this seat. One was this lady here. Her name is Kay Hagan. She was a state lawmaker running on the Democratic side. She was up against Elizabeth Dole, the wife of the former Republican presidential candidate, a big name running on the Republican side. This was a close race. Everyone knew it. There was a lot of money being funneled into North Carolina. Also cool because it wasn't every day you see two women running for a Senate seat. That's kind of awesome too. And you're looking for any way to get an edge. And it turned out Kay Hagan, the Democrat, held a fundraiser, or she had a fundraiser, at the home of someone who was known to be an atheist activist. She went to his home. Not because she's an atheist. I think she taught Sunday school. But she went to his house because he was hosting a fundraiser. And with that information alone, I want to show you the commercial the Dole campaign ran afterwards. See if this works. We can't hear it. Can we get the sound here at all? Let's try that again. If it doesn't work, I'll just narrate for you. Hi, I'm Elizabeth Dole, and I approve this message. It's not working, but I'll narrate this for you as we're going through it. It's a snapshot of atheists appearing in the news and saying, let's take God off the currency. Let's take God off of the dollar bills. Kay Hagan appeared at an atheist home. You can tell the dark music is in the background. What did she promise in return to the atheists? By the way, when the screen fades to black, you hear a voice saying, "There is no God." I'm not joking. That's really in the ad. What did she promise in return? I have no idea. She promised us nothing. And yet that was the ad they ran because just the link to an atheist was enough to be an attack ad. That's how bad it is. I will tell you the good news there is that it didn't hurt her enough. Kay Hagan ended up winning that race in 2008, but 2014 she lost her re-election bid to Tom Tillis. Tom Tillis is up for re-election in 2020. Let me give you another name. We're speeding through this. You guys know this guy, Pete Stark. Democratic representative from California, Pete Stark. He made news across the country because in 2007, he announced he was an openly non-religious member of Congress. Like the first one we knew about who was openly saying, I don't believe in a higher power. Now, he called himself a Unitarian, but he said, yeah, I don't believe in a higher power, and I'm okay with the Secular Coalition for America broadcasting that, if that's what you want. And he said later on, the reception, he was surprised. The reception was overwhelmingly positive. He thought it was going to be really bad, and it wasn't. He got so many positive messages from people. But here's something that was shocking even to me when I was looking back at this. Pete Stark ran some successful re-election campaigns even after being out as an atheist. He won again in 2008. He won again in 2010. In 2012, he was also up for re-election. And there was another Democrat trying to beat him in the primaries, and that other Democrat won. Pete Stark did not get reelected in 2012 because another Democrat beat him in the primaries. He was like AOC before AOC was a thing, and it was this guy, Eric Swalwell, who, if you watch MSNBC religiously, you've seen a lot of him because he's one of the very outspoken opponents of Donald Trump. Eric Swalwell is the guy who primaried Pete Stark, and here's the thing. I like Eric Swalwell. He's really good on TV. I agree with most of his politics too. But when he was running in that primary, again, how do you beat a longtime incumbent who is fairly progressive? Well, you look for any way to get an edge. And it turned out in 2011, the House held a symbolic vote on, should we make "In God We Trust"? Should we reaffirm that as our national motto? And of course, this is one of those things where, like, of course they're all going to say yes. And almost 400 of them said yes. Let's reaffirm that as our motto. 9 members of the House said no. Pete Stark was one of those 9. And Eric Swalwell used that when he was running in the primary. Press release, do we trust Pete Stark to represent our views? I'll show you a little bit of what he said in there. The 15th congressional district deserves a member of Congress who is in touch with its people, can work well with others, and can honor our national motto. Swalwell, what are you doing? Come on. Okay, one more snapshot. I swear, I'll move on. Kyrsten Sinema was also elected in 2012 to the House from Arizona, and I heard rumors that she was an atheist. And I remember hearing during the primary, like, there's this bisexual atheist running for House in a fairly red area, but, like, she has a good chance of winning. And when she won the primary and she had a chance of winning the seat, all of a sudden I saw her stop referring to herself as an atheist. And when she won the race, there were headlines, a bisexual atheist just got elected to Congress. And her campaign is like, whoa, 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 not an atheist. It's like, well, okay, so I wrote to their campaign and I said, well, what label are you using? Because if that one's no good for you, like, what are you going with? This is what their campaign staff wrote me back with. She believes the terms non-theist, atheist, or non-believer are not befitting of her life's work or personal character. You could have said no. You could have said we're busy and we're not going to answer it and go. No, they gave me that, like throw atheists under the bus. Like, come on, cinema. But I will give her this. When she was sworn into office, John Boehner's doing the swearing in there, she took an oath on the Constitution. And last year when she ran for U.S. Senate and won, she took her oath of office on another copy of the Constitution with Mike Pence holding it. So cool. Every 2 years, the Pew Research Center releases this survey of the newly elected members of Congress, and they say, what's your religious affiliation? Because it's an interesting thing to keep track of. And so right after she got elected, this is I know you can't see this, but this is the thing they put out. And there's one section down here that says unaffiliated, and there's one. And it's Kyrsten Sinema, then a U.S. Congresswoman. So, okay, there's one. There's 535 members of Congress and one Kyrsten Sinema. And let me also take you to 2012. Every 4 years, Gallup does a survey during the presidential campaign, and they say, hey, voters, would you vote for someone in your political party if that person were a blank? If that person were black? And it's like 96% of people say, like, yeah, why would that be a problem? A woman, yeah, most people are like, that would be fine if I agreed with their politics. And where is atheist on this list in 2012? There we are. Way at the bottom. This was actually cause for celebration in 2012. You know why? It's above 50%. 54% said, yeah, it's not the worst thing ever. All right. Now, okay, that's the end of the sad half of this talk. 6 minutes left. We'll get through this. You guys just heard about Jared Huffman. Like a couple years ago, Jared Huffman, another Democrat from California, said, okay, fine, I will come out as non-religious. He used the word humanist, and that is awesome. You already heard his story. I'm not going to go into detail about that, but I remember after he came out, I was very excited to see this year's Pew Research survey where they list the Congress members and their religion, because I was so excited to see the word atheist on that list, or in his case, I would be fine with seeing the word humanist on the list. And then that survey came out. And I scroll down and I'm looking for the word atheist and I don't see it, and humanist isn't on there. The closest I see is unaffiliated and it says one. And I'm like, that's Kyrsten Sinema, that's not him. Jared, where are you? And in their report, Pew said, we get our data from this political survey that is handed out. Representative Huffman didn't send us the survey. Like, Jared, you had one job. What are you doing there? But a couple of months ago, he updated that survey, and it does say humanist now. So the next time they do it, it'll be there. And by the way, this is the thing. Because he is there, because we have an openly non-religious member of Congress who isn't afraid of using, in his case, the H word, it makes a difference. I know you've heard this already at this conference, but Representative Huffman and Jamie Raskin and Mark Pocan, I mean, they helped begin this Free Thought Caucus, which has, I know this is 10 members. There are actually 2 more as of this writing. 12 members of this caucus. Literally, Jared Huffman is the only openly non-religious one on that list. But that is still cool. Those are people who are saying atheist isn't really a dirty word for us. We'll fight for church-state separation. We'll fight for reason-based policy making, which is still a thing, and maybe it'll come back one day. I can't wait. And we can talk about why all this is changing, but I want to show you what's really making me excited here. In 2016, Gallup did that same poll. Would you vote for the president if that person were a blank? And if you scroll down to the bottom, wait a minute, that's not us anymore. We're over here. This socialist is now the worst thing you can be. Thanks, Bernie. We're over here. We're at 58%, and by the way, if you break this down by age and you ask people like under 30, would you vote for someone who's an atheist? The number's like 75%. It's getting to the point where like even to the youngest people, they're like, atheist, yeah, who cares? Get me something controversial here. And last year, in 2018, when they had the midterm elections, with the help of the Center for Free Thought Equality, which is an arm of the American Humanist Association, I started keeping track of everyone running, not for Congress, not just for Congress, because Huffman's the only one who's openly non-religious, but at the state level, people running for state house or state senate, and how many of them were openly non-religious. And the only caveat here is I didn't care what word they used. Atheist, great. Non-religious, all right. Spiritual but not religious, like, yeah, all right. Any of it, I'll take it all. It all counts. And I kept a spreadsheet, and if you could see this, the purple represents people who ran for state house or state senate and lost, which is just about everybody who runs is gonna lose. And the green represents people who won their races, some of whom were incumbents. But again, these are all people who openly said before the election, I am non-religious, and these are the words I'm using. Let me scroll through the spreadsheet for you. Look at all the greens in all of the states as we're scrolling through here. I know there's a lot of purple. Don't worry about that. That's expected. Look at all the greens. This is in alphabetical order, if that matters, by state. How many greens are on that list? How many non-religious, openly non-religious elected officials are there? 50. There are 50 around the country. That is incredible. That is way more than I thought existed anywhere, because I literally could have told you maybe 5 or 6 before I started keeping track. And then I realized, oh my goodness, there are so many more than that. And let me leave you with this. And by the way, that was 2018. Can you imagine what that number is going to be next year? When you expect that progressives will come out in droves, like more reason than ever before to get people running, because again, what are they going to have against you? I remember earlier this year, I saw a piece of legislation, and it was written, it was a pro-science bill passed, or at least filed in a state, I think New Hampshire. And I remember seeing the sponsor, and I'm like, that name sounds familiar. Oh, right, she's one of the Greens on the list. And then I was like, look at that. She's an openly non-religious state representative, filed this bill that is pro-science. Isn't that awesome? And then I looked at her co-sponsors, and I'm like, wait a minute, that name is on the list. So is that name. Like, it's like she hit everybody in her state who was non-religious to be a co-sponsor of the bill. And I said as much on my website. And I get a message from that state representative in my inbox, and she's like, how do you think I found the co-sponsors? She saw the list, and she's like, oh my, I have allies I didn't even know about. I'm gonna go to them and do that. I had another state representative slide into my DMs on Twitter, and she's like, how come I'm not on your spreadsheet? I'm like, who are you? And I had to look at her bio, and she's a state representative. I'm like, are you openly non-religious? She's like, look at my Twitter feed. Every other tweet, I'm swearing. I have no problem with you calling me an atheist. All right, I will add you right away. One last thing for you. Okay, so how do we get this list upgraded? How do we get more people on that list? Let me give you one final thing here. I have 4 seconds. We can do this. Here's a case in point. This is Megan Hunt. She ran in Nebraska. Nebraska is the state where you don't have like 2 bicameral anything. You just have 1 unicameral legislature. Everybody's a senator. She ran for one of those districts. And she was a challenger. She had never run for any elected office before. So it was her and one other woman, and they were running for this seat. And I remember looking at her website saying, okay, I mean, value-wise, I pretty much agree with her on the values, so that's great. If I lived there, I would totally vote for her. And then I saw there was a local article, like an article in the local paper, talking about the candidates, giving people an idea of who these people are. And they had a sidebar where it just had some biographical details about Megan Hunt. And I remember seeing this, faith, atheist. And I was like, oh no, she's gonna lose now. Like, you said it out loud. You're not supposed to do that. What are you doing? It's toxic. And then she won her race. She is I think she's one of 6 openly non-religious state senators, or maybe one of the only 6 who uses the word atheist. And I remember asking her, I'm like, Senator Hunt, how did you end up winning this race and have this word, how did this not hurt you? Because it hurt so many people. How were you able to get over that? And basically what she told me, and I'm going to quote this too, she took the air out of the balloon before the other side could pop it. She put it right out front. She wasn't ashamed of it. She just said it. And then, and this is important, she talked about the issues that actually mattered to voters. Talks about the roads, talks about healthcare, talks about infrastructure, all the other things that people actually care about. She just let this one out there. And then what were they going to say? Like, oh, hey, did you know you're an atheist? Like, what is she going to say? Yes, I am, and here's what really matters to me. And then talks about other things, and this is the key. If being an atheist is the only thing anybody knows about you, yeah, that might be political poison. But if it's one of many things people know about you, and it's not the thing you're campaigning on, because why would you? You're running for office, it may not be that big of a deal, and it's becoming less of a deal as the years go on. So I hope any of you can all run for something. There are like 500,000 elected offices in America. They're not all Congress. It's okay. You can run for something. You can be an atheist. But if you're running for public office, you don't have to dwell on that, but you don't have to be ashamed of it either, and it may not hurt you. Thank you so much.